So we are now recording the May 22nd, 2020 Small Business Accounting Advisors. Hello, everyone.
Happy Friday.
Friday. So are we opening up yet? Who's allowed to go places and where are you allowed to go? Ernest, you've been out and about.
I say, it was my daughter's 21st birthday this week. So we actually consider ourselves very fortunate because as a result of that, we obviously started looking around, where can we go? We had an email out so there's a big wine region here in Idaho. And we had an email out to a couple of our favorite wineries, like, when will you open up? So they literally opened up the day we went out. I think it was Wednesday. For very limited, it's not like throw open the doors, everybody can come in. We had to make a reservation. So we made a reservation for a table of 3. It was a private table. And, but it was just good to be out. So we went to 2 wineries like that where, very limited number of people, but we could go, we could drink wine. The weird thing was the health department here wouldn't allow them to use glass, all disposable glasses. It's like, I have to drink out of a plastic cup. So that was weird.
So much for the environment.
Right? And I'm like, wait, so glasses no longer can be sterilized? Like, I don't get that.
What does that say about what we've been drinking from?
Yeah.
Right.
Miss Linda, where are you and what are you allowed to do?
I am in Southern California and not much. We can pick things up. I just took my dog to the vet. You park outside, the vet comes outside, takes your dog inside, does what needs to be done and brings him back out, brings a little machine out that takes your credit card and you hand sign on it. And it's like a mini clipboard kind of thing, really nice. That worked well. So my dog got all her shots. So she's ready to get her license renewed next week. Again, all electronically. I did go to lunch today though. One of our groups, a group of ladies, we have a Bible study and we now have started doing Friday lunches. She sets chairs out on her patio outside, about 6 feet apart around a table. And we go have lunch and sit and we all bring our own lunch and eat it. And it's just it's outside. So it's like, I'm sure it's fine. But you have to pick things up unless you go to Target or Costco, and there you can go in because they have groceries and groceries are essential. And I just heard announced that somebody somewhere, I don't know if it was California or the federal government, declared that churches are essential and they can't be stopped from having services. So I know here in Southern California, there's 1,000 pastors who have come together. I don't know if mine is one of them, but they're talking about they're going to have a in-live person service on May 31st, Sunday, May 31st, last Sunday, last day in May. And that's Pentecost. So nice. We'll see. I'll decide when it's closer to the time whether I'm going to go or not and how I'm going to do it. Our county just said you don't have to wear masks, but I carry one and I put it on and off.
You mean required?
Right.
Right, because I think that's been part of the problem is can they require?
Right, exactly.
But they're highly recommending it, aren't they?
Well, again, it just depends on who you talk to and why. It's mainly to protect. It appears as if the disease is spread mainly by people talking and not realizing how much spit is going out into the air. Right. Oxygen, carbon dioxide. I read, somebody shared this and I thought it was interesting. Blow up a balloon, sit there and what does it take? 6 or 8 puffs to blow a balloon up, tie it off, put it in the freezer and freeze it. And when it comes out, pop it and then measure the weight of what went into blowing up that balloon. And then you get a better picture of what's in. There's carbon dioxide, there's oxygen, there's water vapor and all that. And then I guess it weighs, I have no idea how much it weighs, but somebody said they were shocked at how much it weighed. You don't know. They said it was about a cup, though. They said when it was frozen and then broken down from the balloon, it was about a cup of stuff. And I'm going like,
Wow.
just from
Wow.
blowing
So
up.
that's what the mask do. The mask protects other people.
Yes, but that's why if I'm out and people don't have masks on, I'm not going to walk real close to them.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Miss Sarah, where are you and what's happening in your area?
I'm in Savannah, Georgia, and we opened first.
You've been all
How's
over
that,
the
how's that, how's that working? How's it working out?
Yeah.
So-
So, you know, it's what we're hearing now is the safest place is with a lot of airflow. If you're going to go near other people, a lot of airflow. So outside, and the other is length of being exposed to the virus.
Yep.
So even if you sit within 6 feet of somebody, if they're spewing virus, if you sit next to them 15 to 20 an hour, you know, there's a higher chance that you're going to get it than if you're at the grocery store just walking by people. Because it's like, why isn't everybody getting sick just from going to the grocery store? Well, it's movement. You're not sitting in it. And so that means we're back to the original thing where two things: closed rooms, offices, and church are the highest risk. And then, which our church, they're allowed to open up the 31st for Pentecostal, but the choir loft, but see, the thing is, we can't get away from each other in the choir loft, and we're going up these skinny little stairs. And so, and the other thing is the force of your breathing. So if you're someplace loud, like a bar, and you're yelling and talking like that, and if you're singing, you're projecting, so you're really spewing. So even if we're in the choir loft and we're trying to stay 6 feet away, it's not enough room. So our entire choir said no, except for one guy, because he thinks the whole thing's a hoax. But we just went, no, sorry. And so they'll do something else. But it's, you have to RSVP. And so they need to know how many are coming, and then they're going to have an organized way to like seat you and your family. And if they have more than, like, our church will fit, I think, 250 people. Well, if it gets more than, you know, I forget what the ratio was, we're going to have to go next door to the gym to, you know, and so, you know, it really boils down to how much you really want to go to church. We can still watch it on TV, but for my husband and I, we're just going to wait until July, at least.
You would think that people in the same family should be able to sit together on the same pew, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean-
You can group family units. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's what I'm saying. So it isn't just every person 6 foot apart. It's every family. If you live together, you know, but it's just amazing how every state, different counties, different churches, different businesses, they're all approaching this in so many different ways. It's like, I wish we could get a definitive, this is the way, you know, and then let's assess the risk that way. But they just had another church where it opened for Mother's Day, and I don't remember if they did it legally or not, but out of 97 people, 60 something got it and 3 have died. So it's wicked, what do you call it? Contagious. So, I found another friend of mine had it. So when I was texting him, I'm like, you know, so sorry. I said, I heard it could be really, you know, miserable, you know? And he said, it really wasn't that bad, but the lower back pain was horrible. I hadn't heard that one. So it affects everybody in different ways. And so he said, yeah, it was a really miserable time, but, you know, he's okay now. But I can't tell you how many people I know firsthand have it. So and our numbers are going up. A lot of Georgia's going down, but our county's going up. So.
Shannon, tell us where you're at. And what are you allowed to do?
Southern Minnesota, and we can go to Walmart. The Archdiocese and the Lutheran Synods are suing the state to open, and they're opening illegally on Sunday.
Mhm.
And restaurants can open June 1st for patio only. And then now that raises the questions on, do they all have to get porta potties, or can you go to the bathroom inside?
God, it just opens up a whole nother can of worms, doesn't it?
And yeah, and gyms can't open, so you can't exercise indoors. And so much stuff is still closed. Different cities are choosing to close for extended periods of time. Like the playgrounds in Mankato are closed until July 13th at the earliest.
Dennis,
I think we can have up to crowds of 25 after, I think, the end of the month. And I just go to Costco. I mean, I go out maybe once every 2 weeks and wear a mask. And at one of the Costco's, they have people employees by the meat counter saying, keep moving, because it's where people tend to congregate. But I wanted to say, I'm doing a speech for Toastmasters on the Spanish flu of 1918.
Ooh.
And I wanted to share a cartoon with you that I had collected from, I'm going to use it for my presentation. I want to see if I can share my screen.
okay, let's
It's not
do that once we get
trademarked,
to
is
our
it?
people.
Pardon?
We'll do that before we end.
Okay.
Okay.
Just in
And
case
you
it's
are
trademarked or copyrighted.
Huh?
No,
How
we'll
do
do
you
it. We can do it on air. We will. I just want to continue with
Okay.
where
Okay.
are you and how
Okay.
open are you? And you are located.
20 miles outside of Seattle.
And Greg, where are you and what are you allowed to do?
I am in Northern California, about halfway between San Jose and Sacramento. And I don't even know or care what I'm allowed to do. I go as I please and do as I please. I went and had dinner in a restaurant this past weekend with my wife, and that's just the way it's going to be for now, that certain places are going to be open, certain places are not. And maybe I'm lucky in so much as that I've probably already had it, and my wife probably was already exposed to it when I had it. And when this first came out, obviously I shared some information before we started recording why I'm uber concerned about this for her. However, she's already been through it and likely has already had the exposure, and there's nothing going on with any of us that we're worried about any of that. We're going over to meet up with friends this weekend and have a barbecue, celebrate birthdays and Memorial Day.
Nice. Larry, can you talk? Is your sound back? Larry? Looks like you're
Can you
still
hear me?
mute. Oh, good. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
I'm on Long Island, about 30 miles from New York City. And the rules keep changing here depending on what county you're in. We're in Nassau County. And I think I heard him say this morning, the governor said they're going to increase the number of people you can be with at your home if you have social distancing from 10 to 15. So
In your home?
most of, all the sit down restaurants are closed. They do have some takeout. That's about it. Food stores and some hardware stores. You can go to hardware stores.
Got it.
I'm not sure about Home Depot, but
Our Home Depot and Lowe's and local hardware stores have been open the whole time. In fact, our daughter got a job working over there because they're so busy that they needed to hire on new people because everybody who's sitting at home is looking around their house like, well, shit, what am I going to do now? Well, might as well fix that window shade or something.
Exactly.
Hey, you hear that, honey?
The thing that I heard, or that actually I read this morning, they have like a little local news blast that comes out. They said about 25% of the people in Manhattan are hurting for food. And that's pretty scary if it's true.
Yeah,
That's serious.
same out here.
Matthew,
Ventura County is the first county in all of California to open up stage 2 completely. Restaurants are open. Retail is allowed to be back open. Once they register with the city and show their plan, i.e., they get to check their business license and check their sales tax, right? You know that's coming, guys.
Their little footprints on the ground and signs and everything.
Yeah, they're going to make them do that too, but I think they're just more interested in getting some more tax dollars out of them. But we are officially open, I guess, after 10 weeks.
okay, nice. Pennsylvania, certain counties are in the yellow phase. The county that I am in is in the red phase, and we have not, our positive rates and our deaths are still not going down yet. And it looks like we will be in the red phase where I'm at through July, up until July at this point. There are certain businesses that are now protesting. They have tried to veto the governor's, opening, and they are now opening their businesses in defiance. They are talking about pulling their business license and all of that kind of stuff, and fines and revoking any type of money they've gotten from the government. But the businesses are really hurting, and they're saying, we're going to be completely out of business, so it doesn't matter. So that's where I'm at. Wait, Linda, you're muted. Come.
I have a question for you. You mentioned the red phase and the yellow phase. So in Pennsylvania, are you red, yellow, and green?
Yes.
Got it. Just
Yeah.
like the traffic lights. I got it.
Well, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland have all gotten together and have come up with a plan to open, and they are opening by phases. And it depends on what your numbers are like. If you're still getting new cases, they want you closed down. But if you're positive, if your testing positive is going down, then they're allowing you to open up limited in what's called a yellow phase, which is still curbside, which is still, that type of thing. But at least restaurants are allowed to be open. There are still businesses that are completely not allowed open now. Hairdressers being one of them, hairstyling, I know. I want my hair.
First thing they let us open.
Well,
People were screaming.
my hairdresser came yesterday, as you can see,
Nice.
at my house. So
Don't worry, I'm sure that pretty soon everywhere else will start to manipulate the numbers so you can open up sooner, much like California did.
that's probably about right. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
looking
they
like
weren't gonna
another
let-
month of quarantine for May.
Georgia's been caught. They were mixing up the tests for the antibodies and with the regular tests.
Yep, I heard that.
Tell you what, big data. We need that.
Busted.
What do you call it?
Even
Blockchain.
Italy. Isn't Italy like reducing their number of deaths like big time as well?
Yeah, because they were including anybody that died of anything.
Yeah.
And then they were calling every death a COVID death.
And then,
Because you got more money for everybody who died.
and then
of
there's other
COVID.
places that wanted higher numbers to get more money, but then there was other places that the numbers were too low. So what ours is doing is they're reporting them retroactively. So you get a result today and they post it back in the past. So you just,
Wow.
Oh, how clever!
Yeah, a lot of
They do
things you can do
to the
make
day
it
of the
easy.
first symptom.
Sort
So
of
if
a
you have a day of the
retroactive.
first system is the day. So if they don't know, it'll go in today. But so all the tests that come up positive today aren't on today. So unless you're comparing,
They're
it,
back 2 weeks.
keep comparing it.
That's crazy. So Dennis, you had something you wanted to share with us.
Yes.
Let's do that now.
All right.
So the host is disabled. The
He did
participants.
that on purpose. I'm sorry. Matthew just stood up and we saw the full picture.
It says you've disabled the participant screen sharing.
I did not do that.
I
I
got
promise I didn't do that.
host disabled participant screen sharing.
Participants are allowed to screen share.
There
Oh,
we
I
go.
have to check it. It's the other way.
Oh, see, it's just backwards.
Yeah, okay, now you should be able to, Dennis.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've even gone in, Dina, and changed my Zoom settings so that it turns back the screen sharing on all my recurring templates. But
Can you see the screen?
Yeah. So
Okay.
so this is part of your Spanish flu presentation.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on a PowerPoint. But anyway, it's like avoid crowded streets, don't go on trains or buses,
Walk.
stay away from people. Got this guy living in a tower and says the only solution. But the thing is, so it's kind of a real sense of deja vu when I'm reading this stuff, because there was a guy, for example, a policeman shot a guy for not wearing a mask in San Francisco. And so it's like, this has happened before. It's just that because we don't live to be 100 years old,
They're just beating people up for not wearing masks now, not shooting them at least, thankfully.
not yet.
Not yet.
So it's just, and then they had like 3 waves of it, and the second wave was the most deadly. And I think that didn't Philadelphia get caught up in the second wave where they had that parade and you had all these.
Exactly, yes.
So that, I mean,
Yes.
that's my concern, is that there's going to be a second wave this fall and winter, and then.
And there may be.
I'll still be in quarantine by then, Dennis.
Yeah.
It'll be just,
Well, was it Italy? Who was it that when it first started being spreading around to not go near people and everything, that there was discrimination against the Chinese.
Yes.
And so
yes.
in order, because people were getting angry at the poor Chinese people who didn't do it.
right.
And so what they did is, what am I remembering? She whoever she was saying, hug a Chinese. And people were actually going, we're all in this together. And they were actually hugging. And before they realized that was the absolute worst thing they could have done.
Right. It's elbow bumps now, people. What's the deal? Bump elbows.
Kick
It was
feet.
actually, hug, go out of your way. Everybody's upset. Everybody's worried and everything. So we need to hug.
Crazy.
Well, and I actually heard that the Spanish flu was named the Spanish flu because it was actually a lot of other places first.
Well,
But,
the reason,
but it wasn't until it got to Spain that everybody realized how bad it was, and so they just started
Well,
calling it the Spanish
what
flu.
happened
That's
was that
not where
during-
it started.
what happened was that during the war, the other countries they were censoring the news, and Spain wasn't, because they were neutral. And so they got stuck with the name.
We got stuck.
There
with
you
the
go.
name.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
That's
Did you figure out if it came from us? Did it come from the U.S.?
no, I don't think so. I think
think
most
it
all
came-
of these come from China.
I think it was
No.
China. There was speculation there were some Chinese migrant workers that were working in.
Oh,
Europe.
even for the Spanish flu.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one theory.
Wow. Wow.
And
Wow.
also
Who
during,
knows?
and during
You
the
know.
war, people were really crowded together, and
Yeah.
just kind of.
Well, anytime you have people all on top of each other, you're going to have all kinds.
Right, right. Well, at least we don't have a war on top of all of this, but we
Well,
may. Oh my gosh.
They have a
Oh,
depression. But
let's pray we don't have
Could
any
have a
wars.
depression. You're right. You're
Yeah.
right. Let's move on. Linda, you had a landmark instead of an IRL in real life. It was a Zoom.
It was. We had 1,000 people at a landmark conference. It was called the Conference for Global Transformation. And I don't know how many people have heard of the Hunger Project, which actually, it turns out more and more people are being fed every year. There's not as many people starving to death as there used to be. And part of that was the Hunger Project that started back in the 1990s. But we had 1,000 people. We had keynotes and large Zoom rooms that would hold up to 1,000 people.
Wow.
And if we had gotten more than 1,000, they were going to have, you have to then split it into 2 rooms. You have to have 2 1,000 person rooms. But Zoom, the company, worked with the landmark people to make this all possible. We had mainly volunteer workers running every single Zoom room. There were 2 like administrators in every Zoom room, and then we'd go into breakout sessions. And what the people really liked is people were in Australia, New Zealand, India, Europe, you name it. People came from all around the world, and they were thrilled. Yes, and they were thrilled because they didn't have to get on an airplane and fly, and they didn't have to stay at the hotel. And when we'd go in the rooms, when you would click to go into a room, the link, you'd be in the room. Whereas if you were at a hotel, you had to walk to the room, you had to stand in a line till they opened the door. Then they'd open the door and you'd have to file in like through the door, like 3 or 4 people at a time, and find your seats and sit down. And usually when you're at a conference, you're looking at the back of people's heads. Like we go to Lowe's Hollywood Theater. That's where we were last year. That's where they have the Academy Awards. And they can hold 2,500 people in that. That's why we go there. But it's like you look at the back of people's heads. And here in Zoom, everybody had a front row seat. And everybody loved that because we actually got to meet many more of the 1,000 people from all around the world. And especially when we went out into the breakout rooms. When you're in the breakout room, you see like 25 people per screen. Okay. So if you have like 100 people, there's 4 screens, 5 across and 5 down. And you can kind of go across through them. And it was really fascinating. And we actually all participated in the breakout sessions in that. It was very well done. We loved it. And we're supposed to be at Lowe's Hollywood next year, but I'm almost hoping they have it. What was nice too is you're in your own home. So it's a lot easier to get rested up. You don't have to, in between sessions, you don't have to go back to the elevator and go up to your hotel room to lie down and get back to the next session. It just is a lot more convenient, I guess, in my mind. And a lot of people from overseas said that.
Less wasted time, too. Like you said,
really.
getting settled and all that. That's all
Yeah.
When you could be listening. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. We had, we had so many great speakers. We had a man, Baker, who I think Ted Baker, his name was, and he worked with NASA. And they have actually, it was unbelievable, but they've actually developed little tiny miniature spacecraft that are like 18 inches by 18 inches. And when they sent one of the Mars rovers in 2015 to land on Mars, they sent 2 of these little miniature things with it. And when it landed, the 2 miniatures stayed above it, so that when it actually landed, they transmitted back to Earth somehow immediately, so the people at JPL saw the landing right away, because it wouldn't have happened unless they'd been above the atmosphere and Mars able to send it back. And it was like really amazing. He's the one who wants to put men on Mars. So it's just fascinating.
Nice. Matthew?
How come they can transmit video from Mars, but I can drop my cell phone calls all the time?
I think it's a different technology or frequency.
I know.
Well, let's talk about technology. I have had like a mind-bending week technology. To me, personally, I think Microsoft has this passive-aggressive thing playing these games of hide the icon and where's Wally. but that's just me. But I had two websites, two things I needed to do, and was like totally unable to do them. One of them was manage my water delivery, which you go on the website and you put down how many bottles you want. Could not get that thing to work at all. So finally I called customer service, waited an hour to get somebody to talk to, and they said, oh yeah, people are ordering too much water, so we disabled that on our website.
Solve the problem.
Second one was AT&T, which I bought a new tablet and had to activate my SIM card. Not a big deal. You go on the website, you do it. Links are not working again. What's up? Okay, call customer service, wait an hour on the phone again, and they say, oh yeah, because of the COVID thing, you have to go to a special person and they have to do it. Again, this is like some kind of conspiracy to make me crazy. I'm
You're
just
just keeping
saying,
people employed. You're keeping people employed.
thank you for letting me rant. Thank you for,
One way to look at it, Matthew. Yes, we're keeping people employed. Yeah, that's
I had a funny experience with Key Bank. I noticed that my some of my transactions I pay vendors were rejecting. Not everyone, but some. And after about the third one, I thought, well, maybe I should call Key Bank. Turns out they'd put a fraud alert, sort of just randomly put it on by the system put on this fraud alert for all my valid transactions. So I had to go the trouble of getting it taken off. And when I tried to do the chat kept crapping out. So I finally had to call somebody. And it took like about an hour and a half to get this stupid thing fixed. And then I had to contact the vendors that had the things rejected. And it's like,
so
really
when
not
we
a
need
good thing.
technology the most, it's just like making us crazy.
yeah.
So let's talk technology. Mark, hello.
Yes.
Tell us what you've done with your house to protect it against lightning strikes.
Well,
Can you hear?
yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, a little louder.
You just need to put a Yeti over there too.
I know.
So, we've had, I can't count how many lightning strikes nearby that trashed equipment. So, I'm most concerned about obviously the firewall and the computers and that. So, I've got an 8-port. It's hard to say, an 8-port surge Ethernet surge protector.
That's new. That's new.
That's
Okay.
the new piece. So one of the things that we weren't protecting was the cabling in the house. So the network cabling. So this is sitting in front of the firewall ports, so that everything going into the firewall goes through these Ethernet surge protectors. That way,
So this is a barrier on your wiring from the outside before you get to your firewall.
Well, from anywhere in the house to the firewall, and from the modem to the firewall. Yeah. So anywhere, but also from the switches in the house to the firewall. Anything that feeds into the firewall, that's that. Now the switches aren't super expensive, so I wasn't worried about necessarily protecting them, except that I did put them, some of the feeds into those that come from the house where we seem to have a lot of problems. I did run those through through the surge ports and then into the.
It's a pretty setup. It's colorful.
But then that's only one part of it. Then you've got the endpoints, the computers with the docking stations, and of course the server and stuff. And so ideally you need a inline suppressor on that end as well. So I've got one on the server side now, and we'll have them on computers.
He's going room by room, office by
Aren't
office.
those the UPSs, don't they have those little protectors for the cable?
Some of them have pass-throughs for your for the RJ45 network cabling, but you have to watch. Like I just got a little. I had one in where our TV is. We have a hotspot there, and then it passes through the hotspot into the TV, the network cable. And by the way, this is all segmented out, so
It was choked.
I won't go there. Her corporate network is not connected to our home
Right.
side. I mean, it does.
Completely separate.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it comes through the firewall, but it's separated out. So anyway, I had, the UPS that we had in there did have one of those pass-throughs, but it was only a 10 megabit pass-through. It wasn't a gigabit pass-through. So it reduced the speed that that you could get through that access point. So I just replaced that. They've got little ones that are single, input output. They're $20 a piece, and
They're everywhere.
they've got to be grounded. They have to be grounded to things.
Anyway, I'm
Anyway,
blessed
but it's-
every day with this.
So I just got so frustrated. I get having to panic every time there was a
cloud came
lightning,
over.
and we'll see how it works. But I'm not done yet. I'm working on it.
I heard you can accomplish the same thing if you go to your neighbor's tree and put a lightning rod in the tree. It actually says the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Which one? There's what, 5 acres next to us. Which
Oh.
tree?
Pick one, maybe a couple for extra protection.
The tallest.
The tallest. Yeah.
So we got lots of
Tall
pines.
pine. We're surrounded by 103.
Wow.
Yeah.
Height of these trees. So.
And so you also have to be careful, like by doing that helps protect so the wire, like if you get a surge on that wire, it'll burn up the wire through the walls, everything else. And you could literally have to replace all of that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, they've done that many times.
That would take I'd have to quite a hit to get to that, I think. So, but the idea is if I protect going into the firewall and something happens with the line, and it may lightning's a weird thing. It may cross over somewhere from one cable to another. But if I'm just protecting into the firewall and not protecting the endpoint, that surge can go to the endpoint, which is like the printers and the computers and all that stuff, and fry them. So you want those to go through as well, even though I'm doing the other side. So
So you're super protected.
it's not cheap, but it's worth the peace of mind.
Oh yeah, it's just too often. Too often.
Good luck. Keep us posted.
So anyway, that wall now has, when we had the panel, now we have all these blue cables going this way and cables going this way and all these new things on the wall. It's like
blue cables are
really
unprotected, and
really
white
impressive.
cables are protected on the protected side.
Yeah, there's
So that I can tell.
and he's explained it to me at least 5 times.
I just keep showing you how it's changing.
I know, and it's really good looking. Yeah.
Nice.
My response to would be, "Oh, that's so pretty."
I was just about to say, Sarah, you're a very good
make
wife.
you
the way
happy,
just
honey?
explained.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
If anybody wants to talk about it, happy to talk about the equipment that I.
Well, he's
bought.
done a lot of research and all that, so he's a great resource for, you know.
Gas tubes and
Yeah.
diodes and.
Different kinds of surge protection and.
Wow. So you'll be an electric engineer after this, electrician.
Probably.
Years ago, I worked with an electrician at IBM at work, and he used to do work on the side, outside of work too. He said he had a customer once that had, that grounding rod outside, right next to where your power comes in, that they pound in the ground.
Right.
Yeah.
He said it just so happened that the soil around that grounding rod was like, I guess, sandy ground or something. It was loose. And it really needed to be seeded much deeper and to pour some water around it to make sure that there was good connection between the grounding rod. Because what would happen is their house would end up like in a floating state with the electric. It was really weird. And he finally found what it was, and I guess bought an expensive grounding rod to put in or something. But
Oh,
it's lightning and electricity and all of that can really be strange stuff. That you get in the higher voltages, it'll jump over, it'll do the air gap jump, you know.
Yeah.
And it's really,
like I said last time,
Been there.
it blew the wallpaper right off the wall in the bathroom. Everywhere there was a nail in the sheetrock, the wallpaper went poop, poop, and the shower head poop. And I'm like, when your grandma tells you not to get in the shower during a lightning storm, you listen.
Yeah, so it not only traveled along the pipes, it traveled along wires and everything.
That was bad.
Scary stuff, yeah. So you know what? We're going to switch gears for the last time. For the end, we're going to talk about Sarah and your new templates and what you did this weekend.
All right, so let me read you something real quick. Forbes magazine put out an article. Accountants scrape with banks for billions in paycheck protection fees. Okay, so the PPP loan came out and the banks are getting like 5%. And the idea was that whoever's helping these poor clients through this process would get 1%. But it was worded up to 1%. So the banks went, we picked 0. So some of the smaller banks, I mean, if you go out on social media, they'll say, oh, I was able to put my bill with the banker and they paid the bill. Okay. But rare. Okay. So now there's a class action suit and a bunch of CPAs got together and, you know, it's going to get ugly. Good. All right. Anyway. So, but I found
Where do I sign up?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I want to know that. So, so when shoot, I had it on the screen. All right. So, okay. Let me just read this paragraph. When the Paycheck Protection Program rolled out, many small and not so small businesses naturally turned to their accountants to figure out how the program, and help them with the applications. And many accountants jumped right in, didn't we? Often not giving much thought to how much or even whether they would get paid. It is not unusual for accountants to be the business owner's most trusted advisor. Accounting practices thrive on very long-term relationships, sometimes multi-generational, and that accounts for the quick reaction and focus on service. Somebody said they had a blessed memory of a partner saying the world is longer than a day. So it was really good news that the banks would be getting larger fees for processing the loans, with the notion that they would be cutting a piece of the fee to the agents who helped the business owners with the applications. Only there was a fly in the ointment. The fee was up to 1%, and many of the banks decided that they would go with 0%, which, to be fair to them, is less than 1%, right? So it says, I understand how accountants are. For the most part, they're incredibly loyal to their clients, often to a ridiculous extent. There are people making a living. There are people who actually consult with accountants to teach them how to bill because, you know, we are the worst at billing and, you know, writing off labor.
Getting paid for the hours that we put in, yes.
So at the
Someone
beginning
actually
of all this-
recognizes us, yay.
Great article. Okay. So, and what happened? PPP came out, it's all over the news, and then it went into effect like April 3rd, and there were, you know, so we're reading the SBAA, we all just dove in, right? And then every client needed us at the same time. And I mean, it was, you know, a hellacious period, that the application period. And then it ran out of money, and then it would, you know. So in order to keep up with this, we are constantly reading, studying, pivoting, okay? We've had multiple spreadsheets. Wonderful people have shared their spreadsheets. The AICPA came out with one. All those have been trashed. Everybody's got news, you know. So now that people have their PPP, and this whole time I'm watching all this labor just evaporate. It's like, and everybody's suffering, and how do you feel bad? Okay. So when the application came out last Friday, I said, okay, we need to stop. We need to stop because I can't do this again for everybody to get through now the forgiveness, because it is still fluid and changing. And there's a bill going in next week that they're trying to get the 8 weeks extended. Okay, so this is not something that we should be giving away. So I spent a couple days working up a call to action, my offering for the forgiveness, why it's important, why you shouldn't do it on your own, all the little variables. It's just a page and a half. And then I worked up an engagement letter with flat fee in a couple different columns. So if your loan is from this to this, this to this, or this, or over this amount. And then in 2 phases, either you're not worried and I'll help you with the loan forgiveness package after it's all over with, okay, July and after, or you want us to hop on this immediately. We need to do projections. We need to meet with you, see that if this person doesn't come back and we don't get them replaced, how changing those variables is just going to start manipulating what's going to end up either being a loan or returned. And some people think, oh, it's 1%, it'll be a loan, it's no big deal. No, it's amortized over 18 months. Those are massive note payments. Massive, it can be massive. So, but how can you make business decisions if you don't have these tools? And so anyway, I worked up the call to action, and I did a nice short email, that I wanted to, offer, and then I sent them all out last night, and by noon I had 3 $1,000 contracts, and I have another huge handful saying, because I said, if you're interested, if you're interested, I'll send you a quote, an engagement letter. Okay, so I explained everything that we'd get at the different points, but I didn't give a price. And then I'm like, here's the contract. And the ones that value you, and I even put in the letter, if you prefer to do this process yourself, here's a link to the SBAA application. Here's, but I can't, because I've had more phone calls, I know you have too, with quick question. What do you think about rent? Okay, or health insurance. Well, the employees pay, 50% of the health insurance, so I can and I go, stop. No, it's 100% of that premium. So they need to be able to bounce these things off of you, and we need to be
Proactive,
diligent and proactive, and talking to one another and understanding how this works, because there's still a lot of questions.
Can I pay my dog?
Huh?
Can I pay my dog too?
Pay my dog? Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish.
Good for you.
Yeah. So anyway, now I feel better. Now I feel like, okay, it's all this hours and hours and hours of studying. And, the AICPA has a great spreadsheet. I've got a couple different spreadsheets. I want to see which is easier to work. But we are worth all this help. And I started off the letter, I said, I hope we've been a comforting and knowledgeable source for you through this. And then I want to offer this. So I wanted it very clear to every client right out of the chute that this is a different phase, that everything before that, I didn't even have to say it. Everything before that was out of scope. And I only had one. I have an executive director who is also an attorney. She had been saying from the very beginning, you better send me a bill. You better send me a bill. But, it's our choice. So when I tell you what, we have long-term clients. It's so important. So
This is where it really comes into play. This is where you're going to get the clients that have trusted you and known you. And this is where your experience and their interaction with you over the years and over time really comes into play.
mhm.
Absolutely. Unlike Shannon, who has about 5,000 new clients that want to get on the bandwagon and just say, hey, well, I didn't do this before. What do I need to do?
Oh, you know, there's that.
Oh yeah.
It's amazing what this has done. People wanting to become compliant with their payroll. It's I've done almost more S Corp owner payrolls for 2019 since March than I did in January, than I did up until January of 2020.
Yeah, too bad the forgiveness calculation as it stands today says that S corp or owner employees, which are S corp owners, of course there's the 100,000 limit, so it's like $15,000 odd dollars for the 8-week period, but it can't be more than the prorated 8 weeks from last year. It's whatever's lower. So it doesn't matter what they pay. So first of all, you had people who weren't on the payroll at all and won't even get any funding at all. And now they're getting it in compliance. But if they joined the payroll late last year, or just for a portion of the year, or real minimal paychecks, just whatever to try to sneak under the radar, they're hurting. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Not just them, just people being compliant in general are the ones that are the winners.
or even the sole proprietors who have taken those little cash payments and put them in their pocket, not putting it on that Schedule C for years and years and years, and all of a sudden you need that Schedule C to be healthy, and so yeah, it's an eye.
When this is all over, IRS is going to have such a massive hiring.
You think?
This thing will go on.
They won't
for
have the
years.
money. They can't even get machines that aren't out of not only Windows 7 but before. I mean, I don't know. There'd have to be a huge budget increase for
Just hardware alone.
well, that's why they try to get accountants and tax people to do their policing for you. Why do you think we do 1099s? We do 1099s to police for the government, and they're trying to get the banks to do their due diligence with all this. So yeah, there's interesting. I
But
don't
way
know.
to go for being proactive, Sarah.
Yeah,
Way to go for being proactive.
don't give it away. Yeah.
I'm going to end on that. We went over time today. Happens. That's the way it rolls sometimes.
Yeah, don't
So
forget.
have a great
to put in-
weekend. Have a safe Memorial Day on Monday.
yes.
Stay safe, whatever it is you plan on doing or not. Yes, Matthew, I see your.
The villain the whole time. My goodness. It was Matthew. No.
He didn't make a political statement at all. He just went, what's
See?
that? I thought it was a Scooby-Doo cartoon.
Yeah, it looks
All
like
right,
it
we're
does.
going to end on that note.
Have a nice
See you
weekend.
all. Same
Have a
time,
good
same place
weekend.
next week.
Yeah.